Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful that you can join us for another week, and we're super excited. We've invited back Janet Ettele with us, and she was on our previous episode 229 where we talked about how joyous effect works. And so
Effort.
Dan effort, thank you. I can't read my own writing. So, Janet is a musician and author who blends her background as a student of Buddhist Dharma with her art, bringing its teachings into contemporary practice through her writing and music. As a pianist, she has performed with Techno Gyatso, the
Tensho Gyatso.
thank you, the niece of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Oh my goodness, a Grammy Award nominee and Tibetan flutist. I'm not.
No one ketchug.
A graduate of Berklee College of Music in Boston, where Janet studied music composition. Becoming an author decades later was an unexpected but welcome opportunity. Janet's most recent book is How Joyous Effort Works, with a foreword written by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It is the fourth in a series of contemporary fiction based on Buddhist teaching, commonly known as the Six Perfections. Janet worked in the entertainment industry until becoming a mother. She lives in Connecticut, where she has raised two sons and has happily welcomed the addition of two grandchildren. Janet has also recorded two CDs, Piano Mandalas and Piano Mandalas. Compassion.
Compassion.
Thank you. Which are collective collections of her meditatively improvised music. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Like it's such a hard time there.
It's okay,
You
but
did a
I
good
love
job.
the Dalai Lama. I thought was really cute.
You're
I know you
right.
meant the Dalai Lama.
Like
I did too.
I'm like, I'll get it eventually,
But she
but
did the second time. I thought she's not going to like that.
but I'm
It's
I'm just going at this point, I'm just going with it. So welcome back, Janet. We're super
okay.
excited to have you on.
I am so happy to be back. I love being with you too. And it's always good to have a reason to laugh. You
Oh,
know?
yeah.
Yes,
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 it is.
yes. So like I said when before we got on, my brain had a little vacation here, so the reading and the stuff, I think just being a little bit under the weather the last little bit has not helped, but
No, it does that to you. If you've been sick, it really does kind of throw you off a little bit.
it does indeed. So we're excited to talk to you today. We're going to talk a little bit about what's kind of happening in the world as far as some of the negativity and chaos and stuff. And you sent a wonderful quote from the Dalai Lama. Got it that time. Oh, so, which is world peace must develop from inner peace. Peace is not just the mere absence of violence. Peace is, I think, the manifestation of human compassion. So, such a true statement and quote. So, love that.
Yeah, I found that to be really powerful. And not only because it's his words, but because if you know anything about his life and how he's lived, he's lived this. You know, if you're familiar with what happened to the Tibetan people, when the Chinese government invaded Tibet and the Dalai Lama 67 years ago in 1959 had to flee Tibet along with all the other Tibetans, and thankfully India received them. And they had to start their lives all over, build monasteries, build homes, find ways to educate and care for the children. You know, people died in that journey over the Himalaya mountains in the winter, you know, just yet he has no anger. That's the thing that is like you can see this example, this human example of someone who has such control of his mind and such wisdom that he knows how to not be meek and weak, but to not be hostile and angry, but to have compassion. In fact, he's told a story of one of the Tibetan lamas that had been taken prisoner by the Chinese and had eventually been released. And His Holiness asked this person, had he ever been scared for his life? And he said there was one time he was really frightened because he almost lost patience for the guards.
Wow.
And for that, their practice is so, so deep that to lose that patience and compassion would be a real, negative thing in their lives and would weigh heavily for them. So, yeah, it's a really good quote to begin with and kind of think about like how many of us could do that.
Oh, not many.
No.
Not many. And to think that he can remember that one time, you know,
Yes.
because that's all that ever happened was once to him. That's like amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, the this, writing these books, which I think because we have that other episode, if people are interested in knowing that story, that rather than duplicate that here, I think it's still okay to just say, why would I be connected with Buddhism? I live in Connecticut. It's not part of my culture. But I had begun reading some books on Buddhism back in 2008 and gotten really fascinated by the philosophical view of Buddhist teachings and had learned that if you really want to incorporate these teachings into your life, you need to find a teacher. And we talked in that last episode about the flukiness of finding 5 miles from my house, the Tibetan Buddhist Center for Universal Peace.
Yeah.
And, and then from there, I began writing this series of books based on a Buddhist teaching. And I remember going back, so it was like 2010 when I began writing the first book, somewhere around then, and 2025 when the last one was released. So that's like a 15-year endeavor. And from the very beginning, every time, like if I was talking about it to somebody, people would say, "Oh, we need more than ever, we need this." More than ever, we need this. 15 years later, they're still saying, more than ever, we need this.
Mhm.
And it occurs to me that we've all been living in this sort of collective edge of our seat. Oh my God, what's happening? What's going to happen? What are we going to do? And the anxiety and the stress, and sadly, in many cases, it evolves into hatred and anger. And I think this is sort of the nut of like, well, how do we do this differently?
Yeah.
Coming away from ego would be one of it.
Yeah.
There's so much ego, I think, in that what's going on in the world right now. Everybody, they're looking for what they can have next, what they can grab next, what they, you know, material sort of thing. It's not about the compassion that we should be sharing in the world with each other. Instead of what they're trying to do out there is make everybody feel like they're against each other. And that's not what we want. We want to unite and push things together so that people can have a better understanding, have a love for each other, and a compassion for actually caring about what's going to happen next for all of us. It's not just a one person here, it's the whole world that's involved, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I love about hearing from you guys. The wisdom you guys bring to your conversations is really so vital. And I think interdependence is like a fact of life. And I think you saying the ego is something that like kind of think of itself as like, I don't need anybody. This is all me. They don't see, the food that they're eating. They don't think about the insects that pollinated the plants that made the food, or the people that you don't ever even lay eyes on that have been working to grow the food and harvest it and package it and get it into the store. And, just this like thoughtless lack of understanding. And that's just a simple example. I mean, that's just one we can all relate to. But in
Yeah.
every way, we are also interdependent. And so, that's one of the teachings in Buddhism. And when I say that, I also want to say that I was raised Christian. I don't feel that there's really anything in any Buddhist teachings that would tell anybody you have to like become a Buddhist. You
Yeah,
know,
that's very
it's
true.
not necessary. And that if there's something in that philosophical view that helps you, then you can incorporate that. And it's not going to be in any conflict with anybody else's teachings, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I
mean, there's
believe that.
differences. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when you have when you fall into some of these Buddhist teachings that are out there, they are to help us on top of our faith that we already have, be it what it is.
Mhm.
And it's just, this is their seeing the way that they see things from such a peaceful place and full of compassion, full of, the impermanence, like just different things that we don't look at in our everyday life. That's those teachings. And I think there's a lot to be learned from that to just enhance whatever our faith is underneath of that.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe, do you think like some traditions have just different words and different ways of explaining the same truth?
Yeah.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
Absolutely.
as it comes.
Absolutely. Everything's all in thrice too, like everything's threes, and they all combine in all the religions. And so, yeah, it doesn't matter what religion you are. It's about bringing together everybody in unity so that we can fulfill our needs and the needs of the world. You know, yeah, you know,
Yeah. I've always thought like they're so similar yet different.
yes,
But under it all, at the very basis, is that we have someone that, is higher than us that we can turn to in our time of need, joy, whatever our emotion is. But we can also, potentially have a place to go. So whether that's into a church or, a synagogue or the forest, it doesn't really matter. We just have that place that we can go and connect to that higher source that brings
Right.
us that peace and helps us with that. So I
yeah,
think they're so different, yet so much the same.
yeah.
And is that higher source really so much something outside us?
I think
Yeah.
it's, you know,
I mean,
That's a question because I personally think it's us just magnified.
or that we're interconnected with, it's not separate,
Mhm.
that we can we can, like you were saying, reach out to a higher, um, could be a teacher for their wisdom, but whatever. So because of that interconnectedness and understanding that, we're not trying to go it alone because we realize that's futile.
That's
That's
right.
right.
There's no such thing as going it alone, no matter how you delude yourself into believing you are.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm. Yeah. And there's so many people we talk to now too, and they're all trying to bring spirituality together to bring the peace in everybody's mind, heart, soul. That we're all looking for the same thing, right? We want to
Yeah.
share that compassion, like your piece you did there, out into the world to rejoice in what we have around us all the time. We just have to
Right.
open our eyes to see it, right?
It is hard. I think that one of the
And feel
things
it. Yeah, sorry.
that Kim touched on was, the impermanence. I think you were touching on that, one of the foundational teachings is to, meditate on impermanence, the impermanence of the self, are
Hmm.
always changing, the
Oh,
impermanence of our feelings and our emotions, um, our thoughts, and we tend to like glom onto some of these emotions, especially if it's anger and hatred, and concretize it and forget that it's an impermanent thing and it's only our minds that are turning it into something fixed and concretized.
Yeah.
that's true.
It's like I hear when you're saying that it's like this too shall pass, right? So
Mm.
let it, like, as much as like we're angry about some of the things that are happening in our worldly, it's like, yes, but they will pass. Not saying don't make action to stand up for what you believe in or these, but to maybe step back for a minute and take a look at it from a different perspective where we're not
Yeah.
coming into it with the anger and the hatred. We're looking
Yeah.
at it more of from a peaceful collective kind of thing where how can we change this and how can we make this change happen for
Yeah.
everyone?
Yeah.
Right. There's like so many things just went through my mind at once, just in response to that. But I'm not sure where to start. But there was one of them is the teaching on the Four Noble Truths, which was the first teaching that Buddha taught when he achieved his enlightenment, which is the truth of suffering, that it exists, the truth of causes of suffering, that there are causes and conditions, right? And then the truth of cessation, meaning it can stop.
Mhm.
And then the truth of there being a path, that with wisdom, there's a way we can sort of at least reduce the suffering and in ourselves through how we understand things like impermanence, the nature of impermanence, how we can think about how amazing it is that we have this human life and the potential that provides us with, and not to waste it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The understanding of interdependence, that just as you can plant a seed, or you might have a seed, but until you plant it and give it the quality of, good soil, moisture, sunlight, temperature, all of that, those are the conditions that either allow that seed to grow or not. And so that is with our how we think, and therefore our thoughts precede our actions. So the sorts of actions we take, what is our intention in these actions that we're taking? It's a lot of mindfulness, right?
Mhm.
Be aware of. Um, there was in 2017, I wrote a blog post. This is kind of illustrates how what I was saying earlier, like for the last 15 years, that I'm sure it's been longer than that, but since I began writing these books of people like, oh my God, what's going to happen? We need this more than ever. I wrote a post called something like Helpful Hints from the Wrathful Deities, which is on my website. It's they're in Buddhism, they have these deities that look like really kind of creepy, fierce, right? Multiple heads, multiple arms, maybe skulls. I mean, all kinds of stuff that just look awful.
Right.
Um, but the wrathful deities, they're looking fierce, but their intention is of compassion and love. So it's sort of a demonstration of how there are times when strong action is required.
Mhm.
But we do that, like you were saying earlier, Barb, if we can do that with compassion in our hearts, then that action will have, a better outcome. Instead of making matters worse, it'll
Right.
improve them. And that's where the mind training comes in too, is like, how do we train ourselves to maintain that compassionate mind?
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. That's true.
Do you think that as people that do sort of more work with compassion, do you think that we can put seeds of compassion out there for people and that will start creating some kind of a wave for people to start thinking about these things different and taking actions in different ways?
I think so. And I think, we were talking before we turned on the recording. I think we're seeing evidence of that right now for anyone who's following those Theravada monks that are doing the walk for peace they started in Texas and they're walking, making their way even now in some pretty rugged weather on foot to Washington, D.C. And the throngs of people that, like, as more people are hearing about it, they're just coming out to just experience them. And you
It's
see that emotion.
it's beautiful to watch, like people caring to give them flowers, helping them with their feet. I mean, oh my God, like watching it, when I watch it, it makes me smile. that
Yeah.
there's people out there that actually care, and enough that they would make that time to go out and do something for them, with them, whatever the case may be. But it makes me smile, so I'm hoping that that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to put it out there that life is worth living, and we're just showing you that we're here to make the difference. That's what I see from it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And so in a way that answers Kim's question, like, do you think if we do this compassionate action, well, we're seeing evidence of thousands, literally thousands of people, not only the ones that go there in person, but people like us who like I see it on Instagram and I'm like, I just keep
Liking
watching these videos.
it.
Because it's what makes it, it is contagious, I think.
Yes,
Yes.
it is
And
contagious.
a good kind of contagious.
Yeah. And I
And
think
then
we
what
need
is it?
more of that.
Yep, I hope there will be more of that. And I guess in a way like if I were to decide I'm going to go walk across the country for peace, I don't think I'd be attracting those kinds of crowds. But I think in our own way, it's like what are they? I think they're instructing people or suggesting to people to, wake up at each morning and write down today is going to be my peaceful day or something and just meditate on that thought. Today is going to be my peaceful day, and there's your intention
Mhm.
Yeah.
that then and the more we bring ourselves back to that intention, the more capable we are of literally, like you're saying, Kim, putting it into action.
Yeah. And I think it opens our eyes up too to the fact that look at what they're doing peacefully to sway or create a ripple in this chaos and negativity that's happening. And so, really making people come more wide awake to be able to say, oh, wow, maybe there is a different option of how we look at this and how we take action on this.
Hmm.
So, I love that they're doing that. And I think, by them getting it out on Instagram and all the different social media platforms, more people are becoming aware. And my true belief is us as energy beings on this earth plane is that the more energy that we put out that is positive and peaceful in thinking, even in the affirmation, like you were saying, creates this ripple effect globally that we're going to start seeing some of these changes.
I believe so, as long as we're not quick to forget.
Right.
Yeah, we have to, that's why that daily practice is so critical,
Mhm.
and whatever form that takes for somebody to have that daily meditation time, whether it's 30 seconds today to say to yourself, today is going to be my peaceful day, or if you're someone who can actually sit for longer and really think about the deeper levels of how we are all interconnected and how, like the Dalai Lama's quote about world peace must begin from inner peace.
Mhm.
Hmm. That's so true.
That, yeah, because we can feel so helpless in these
Yeah.
times. And that puts a little power back into our sense of presence, of how
Yeah.
we can be interacting.
Hmm. I think with what's going on right now, I worry about the young people, because even with our granddaughter, she talks about, well, like, are we even going to be around in 10 years with what's going on? So they're walking around with fear, these young people. Um, that's not good. We want them to be full of life and dreams and expectations about good things that yet to come. We want that for our children and for all the children out there, but for them to be living in dread and fear because of what's happening out there, it's not good. So us trying to push this intention of creating a better world is a wonderful thing.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And along with that, will I be around? Then would come that sense of futility of like, why bother to do anything?
Yeah.
But you know what? I was thinking this is Last time we talked, you told me about how you raised your children, Barb, and when you took them out to the mountains. Remember that? Well, of
Yep.
course you remember it. You lived it. But I was I was so moved by that. Like, what a powerful mother
Thanks.
to
Thanks.
take her children out so that they connect they connected with nature. They watched the what was it, the trout,
Yeah, yeah, the salmon spawning.
salmon spawning. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know I always have my fish names wrong.
That's okay. There's many of them.
Yeah. But I mean, wouldn't it be that I think we were talking about this, if we could help young people connect with that, to see their interrelatedness to the planet, to one another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do
I
we do
agree with that because, like, and I had said to her, I said her name, she'd kill me. But I said to her when we were having a discussion the other day, because she was really, right? What if there's a war and, just different things that she's seeing? And I'm like, okay, so twofold thing. One, if you're scrolling on your phone and you're reading all this stuff and you're going down that rabbit hole, when you start to get that bubble of anxiety and fear and stuff, maybe go look at some funny videos and change your algorithm to stop getting that stuff. So in your, I'm not
Yeah.
saying put your head in the sand or don't be interested. I'm just saying maybe change it so you regulate back into your body. And then the other thing that I said to her is I said, okay, you have all this fear. And I said, I truly kind of, for what I said before, is I believe we're energy beings. And I said, so if you are putting out all this fear and other people are putting out all this fear, we're sort of generating fear out into the world.
Right.
And so maybe how could you think about some peaceful things or send your love and peace to these different countries that are suffering? And so it just gave her something to,
Yeah.
we
Think
ended
about.
up in a good conversation about it
Yeah.
because it gave her a different perspective of thinking about it. Because, yeah, it's hard when you're hearing them think, you know, we're going to have World War III and the world's going to blow up, or me and all my cousins are going to be drafted into war, right? Like, this is her thinking. And so
Well,
that's scary.
very scary. And how wonderful that she has that comfort to speak with you about it and share what she's feeling with you, and you can offer some kind of counter to it, and along with what you're saying, I always feel, whether it's young people or adults, what are we feeding our minds with?
Like,
And I feel that these algorithms, whoever's making the money behind them is like, yeah, I got a live one here. Let me just keep reeling them in with more fear, because fear is that edge of your seat thing, like I'm talking about, like what's going to happen next. It keeps you hooked in. It's like an addiction.
mhm.
Um, and when you realize how manipulated you're being, if
Mm.
you can realize that you're being manipulated, then you might take some kind of more concrete
Yeah.
stand to sort of put it in its right place.
Yeah.
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 Again, like you're saying, don't put your head in the sand, but just pay attention.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, because they manipulate on our fears, right?
Right.
What are we fearful about? And then, yeah, once you start going down that, it's just, it's a crazy, crazy thing. So,
Yeah.
like I said to her, like, I don't watch the news. I see some highlights and I look at what I choose to look at. And then, like I said earlier, I'll see it and I'll read so much and I'm like, okay, that's enough. And I'm just going to send whatever piece to that situation, or but I don't want to give my energy to that, if
No.
that makes sense.
Yeah. And so
You
we
need
should.
the balance of your energy
Yeah.
being in the direction it is.
Yeah. And we tell our children too, like, dream about what you want. Be excited about the adventures you can have in your life. Dream about that. There's hope out there. There really is if you follow it through, right? And so when you think about that, you think this is what we're trying to put out there for our children to know. And yet we got the other side that's putting this other stuff into their minds, you know, And all of us are trying to push back as much as we can, going, no, no, don't think about that. Don't think about that. That's the wrong side of it. You got to think about pushing the energies out there to be strong and um, fight for the courage and the dreams of what it's going to come to us, you know.
Right.
It's out there for us.
There, you reminded me of there is a man I know who's now quite elderly and his memory's not quite as sharp as it was, but he used to always tell me the Buddha was right. He said, when with your thoughts you create your world. Now he's telling me David Bohm said, you know, with your thoughts you create your world. So I'm not sure who really said it, but I think there's a lot of truth in that, that with our thoughts, we create our world, because
Yeah,
with our thoughts, as we were saying before, we then experience our feelings. And then from that, we take our actions. And then we receive the results of what our actions are, which is, you know, another Buddhist thing is karma, cause and effect. You don't have to, you know, get into the whole karma thing if you don't like that word, but in essence, it is cause and effect, and every action
is a
becomes
reaction.
a cause and delivers a result.
Yeah,
So again, intention, what are we bringing into the actions we're creating? And if this is how things are now and we want it to be different, what kind of actions do we bring to create that difference?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think there's just so much from world leaders and in lots of different dimensions of that, this chaos and negativity that's been brought down upon us. So, what do you think are maybe some steps that people could take if they're looking to sort of change either their behavior or their actions or thoughts to kind of help this situation?
Well, I think before we can help the situation, we have to help our inner space, our inner being. And so that first step would be as simple as taking a few minutes or longer if you have it in the morning to just kind of sit and try to quiet your mind. What a lot of people recommend is just to like follow your breath, keep your attention on your inhale and your exhale, and just you'll find how quickly your mind wants to jump to other
oh
things,
boy. Yeah.
right? It sounds so simple. It's like, okay, I'll just focus. And I like to pretend I can see my breath as if it's light coming in and then out, and keep my intention. And then see if you can do that for 3 consecutive breaths. If you can do that for 3 consecutive breaths, you got a good start there.
Yeah,
And then begin to do that little by little, do that more, and then maybe borrow from what the Vietnamese, Cambodian, I'm not sure where they're from, the monks that walk for life, walk for peace monks. Maybe make that statement to yourself: today is going to be my peaceful day. And also to recognize, I think another thing that's helpful to do, and in doing that, so you begin with that breathing thing. I will say, and this is not to sell my books, but I will say that in the 4 books that I've written, it's fiction and it follows a young guy and main character, a contemporary person who meets the teacher in each book. And there's guidance on all of this sort of stuff throughout the books. So you get to kind of be the fly on the wall and do it with the main character. But as you begin to focus on this, you know, understanding impermanence, we can think about even the impermanence of what we consider the enemy.
Mhm.
That
mhm,
when we think about how many times countries that have been enemies at war at another time are allies and vice versa, you realize that where is the enemy, you
right.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even with people that we know, maybe we've had falling outs with somebody who had once been a very close person in your life, or maybe you reconnect later again. So again, this idea of enemy is only concretized by our thoughts,
That's right.
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a helpful way to start, because with that, it allows you, even if you can only do it inside and not in action yet, but if inside you can begin to sort of open up a little space of compassion for even the people you disagree with, the people who see things differently than you do, that you think are causing all the trouble, and understand where's their suffering.
Mhm. Yeah.
And wouldn't it be nice if they were freed from that suffering? And then you can wish for them to be free from that suffering, because if they were free of that suffering, they wouldn't be engaging in any destructive action.
True.
Yeah. Yeah.
True.
And I think when you bring it back to yourself like that, you can start to see, like, because even as you were talking, I was just thinking about some different situations where that negativity has crept in against people, against whatever, like things that are going on. And then just how we react as humans is to feed into that negativity instead of somebody being the person to be able to say, and I think with practice, you probably could say this is, I'm not going to discuss that. Like, I'm not going to feed into the negativity. So that's the conversation you're having. Or, geez, I wonder what they're going through in their lives, right? To bring that awareness, because I think that's the biggest thing with it.
Yeah. Yesterday I was having a bad moment, and and I left
Sorry.
that's okay. And I left the house thinking to myself, okay, just because I'm going through a moment doesn't mean that I have to bring everybody else I meet today while I'm out. So I actually put a little program to myself as I left the house and said to myself, for every person I meet, I'm going to say at least one word to them, whether it's hello or
Mhm.
something. But I'm going to bring some kind of conversation today in every person I see. And so what it did was brought joy back into my heart. Okay, it gave me something to do, and as I did it, watching the expression on people's faces as I said something to them, like, boy, it's not a bad day today, but it was still like minus 20 something, right? So people kind of look at you like, what? And I was just kidding, you know. But it was sort of and it really made me feel good by the time I end up going back home again. I thought, wow, that was kind of a cool, fun thing to do.
But see, it's because you had that openness in your mind, that like you weren't trapped in the concrete moment of that you had not been having a good day at that
Right.
point. You
Right.
recognized its impermanence and your capacity to make a change.
Yeah. It
And
was.
in that way, which sounds simple, but for some people that would have been really hard to do if they were like determined to stay set in that bad place.
Right.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
And we often do sometimes, right? We get into, I mean, we're just humans. So we have this stuff. We haven't learned all these lessons yet to
Yeah.
live like that. But like I think that's a wonderful example though, Mom, because you're showing people like it can be that simple
It
if we
is.
can allow that and be open, like you said, Janet, to be that open to it, to allow that into our hearts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And there's sort of like a spirit of generosity in that too, of what you did, because you were sort of like bringing a little light into their life. There's that giving, there's
Yeah.
that, again, that exchange, that
Yeah.
interdependence of like, look how that little touch of light lights up somebody else.
It was interesting because when I'd see the person coming towards me and they'd have that frown on their face sort of thing. And I'd think, oh boy, I wonder what they're going through, sort of thing. And you have that compassion for them. It's like when you're driving down the street, you see a homeless person go, God, I send you lots of love and light for what you have to live, right? I send you love. So I mean, but the same thing when I was seeing some people coming towards me, and I'm thinking, oh boy, you're having a miserable day and say something to them, right? And as soon as I did, they'd get the old like "What day is sort of thing. And then I say, nice day. They go, yeah, not really. Whatever, but at least I got them talking.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. I think we need more people like you on the world, definitely.
Thanks. It was fun. I'm sure you're like that, that you just, because you have a smile that it keeps on giving. You do. You do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Um, I do, I think that how many years have I been studying this stuff now? Like 18 years. I think it has sort of seeped in to where it's not something I have to like make myself think about as much when I see somebody that's cranky on the, like you go into the doctor's office or something and and I can just think, wow, like you did, it's just like it's not like I'm gonna like tell them a joke or something and try to make them laugh, but I mean, you just soften for them,
Mhm.
and I think when they then encounter the next person at the counter facing them, not being complaining or demanding, even that might just be a little bit of a reprieve for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think so. Yeah, you're in the doctor's office because you're sick, but it doesn't mean you have to be miserable. You know?
This is true. This
Yeah.
is true.
Well, and
So
this gives me hope. Like this conversation that we've had gives me hope that I mean, because historically we go through these chaotic times to create
We do.
change and to, move us in new directions. So this conversation gives me a lot of hope that we're moving along in that and we're able to send this energy and share these positive moments and, soften up for the people that we meet in our lives. So
Yeah.
thank you guys, both of you. No, because it really does. It brings me some hope because I worry,
Sometimes, yeah.
just witnessing it from sort of an outsider's kind of view
yeah.
to what's happening.
I think that the hope too is that it kind of realizes I'm not powerless.
Hmm.
I think that's one of the scary things is like we feel like we're just sitting ducks.
Yeah, we
And
don't do that.
um, and yet then we realize, okay, I have some power to do something. And I don't, I think we see the people on social media or in the news, the heroic ones, that are, have a platform or something. And we think, well, how can I do that? We can't,
Mhm.
maybe. That's not our calling. Our calling might be something different. And I think, it's unique to each one of us to find that space where we can cultivate it within ourselves and put it into practice.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes maybe our mission and our job as a part of this is not to have that platform, but just to raise awareness that there's these other options of how we can handle things and
Yeah.
give ourselves a little bit of that power
Mm,
back. Because, yeah, when you're feeling powerless, like I'm one person, how do I change anything? Because I think that's a
yeah.
lot of us,
But we can.
and we can. Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
So,
And and I don't know that it has to be in the mob sense that like we, to, I don't know. I think it's wonderful that people going out in the streets and doing things, but I think that that's one method. I think there are others, and I think we each have to find where we fit best.
yeah.
And
I agree
We
with
do.
that.
We
Yeah,
do.
I definitely agree with
Yeah.
that.
yeah.
So, can you tell people where they can find you if they're looking for you or your books, your music?
Thank you. Yeah. The easiest place is my website, which is my name, janetettele.com. And I'm going to spell it because that my last name, I think there's one other distant cousin with that name in this country, and that's it. So it's first name is Janet, Janet, and then my last name is Ettele. So janetettele.com. And there's my books, my coaching work, my music. What else? Yeah, I think that.
Your music is beautiful.
Thank you. I remember you said you love the piano.
Oh,
So
it's
I,
beautiful. Yeah. Do love the piano. It's just, I don't know, there's something that touches me with the piano. So, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it just brings a lot of joy to your heart, your music. So,
Mm.
Thank you.
We appreciate you sharing that with us, and we're happy to share that with the world to tell them to definitely go check you out because it just gives your mind a little bit of peace, which
Yeah.
I think is great.
Thank you. Well, it was, when I was recording it, that was what was in my mind. It was sort of like if I could have a prayer and have it come out, for peace for people or relief, easing of suffering or something, and have it come out in music. That was sort of what was in my mind as I was improvising the music at the time.
Well,
So that
you
makes me feel
channeled it through
You
perfectly.
did.
So
That's how you're setting world peace. That's how you're putting out peace in the world by your
we do
music.
what we can, right?
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. And if you had a final thought to leave with us and our listeners, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, Kim. Um,
It's
a
very
final,
organic when I ask it this way.
yeah, a final, I don't know if that's a final thought, but a thought is that just to really r- remember we're not isolated, we're not alone. Reach out to people who you can share with, perhaps deepen your practice. That's so important. That inner work is so important. I don't mean work like, you got to chisel away at stuff, but just allowing yourself to have that time to develop a little bit of a meditation practice. It is so grounding. It's just like giving that seed the right amount of soil and sunlight and water to grow. And yeah, just
Well said.
don't lose hope,
Well
and
said.
keep the peace. Yeah.
Very well
Okay. I
said.
loved seeing you both again. It was so wonderful to
Yes,
see you.
It's such a
we
pleasure.
love spending time with you as well. And of course, we'd love to have you back anytime because I just think we both like love the energy that you bring because
So
you
peaceful.
come with such a peace and hope and compassion for the world that I think, is really important. And part of Mums and My mission with this podcast is to get that kind of energy out to the world for people to see. So thank you for bringing that to us and to our listeners.
Well, I sense that's your energy too, and I feel like that's why I was so excited to be able to be with you. It just really felt great to be able to spend this time with you. So
Thank
Well,
thank you.
you.
you're welcome and thank you. And everybody else, we will see you on the next one.
You bet.